welcome to the Intuitively Wild podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Levine. Living intuitively wild is about coming back home to ourselves. Here we talk about how to live connected to ourselves, others, and nature, and make a commitment to radical authenticity, vulnerability, and acceptance. On this podcast, we delve into a wide range of topics that span the human experience. We peel back the layers and talk about the things that are often not talked about. This is a space for us all to walk and wander this path of life together. Let's dig into our roots and go deep. Okay, today on the podcast, we have a very special episode. We are joined by Gwen Pelfini, who is an integrative psychotherapist and psychedelic therapy advocate. Gwen has been immersed in the mental health field for 20 years, having been exposed to the world of neurodivergence and innovative healing approaches at a young age. Growing up amongst the diversity within the San Francisco Bay Area and gathering influential experiences and training from UCLA, NYU, and various mental health institutes along the way, she has honed her expertise in the specialty of integrated health, honoring the wisdom of mind, body, and soul, and the ways in which psychedelics can enhance healing transformation. Gwen is an adjunct professor, multi-licensed psychotherapist, certified psychedelic assisted therapy provider, and advocate who is passionate about curating spaces for access and conversation in the community. Through her warm and direct approach, she has made it her life's work to help people connect with their own inner healing intelligence and live a meaningful life. In today's episode, we go deep into psychedelic therapy, the good, the bad, the misunderstandings, Gwen's experiences, my experiences, and how she works with her clients to heal mental health with psychedelics. This is a topic that in a lot of worlds is still not often talked about. I think there's a lot of stigma and misunderstanding. So I hope that this conversation is enlightening, empowering, and interesting. There is so much I wanted to discuss with Gwen, and we barely scratched the surface. So if you are interested in a part 2, like Gwen and I are excited about sharing, then please let me know and we will get on that. And with all of that being said, let's jump into the episode. Okay, Gwen, welcome to the podcast. I am so happy to have you here and so excited to talk to you. And I want to start with, what is something you wish people knew about you that you don't think many do?
Well, first of all, thank you, because I'm so honored to be included in this beautiful movement you've been creating and this platform that you're continuing to curate. As a psychedelic therapist, I am learning more about the importance of access and where I come into play with that. And so what I hope people pick up is what I'm trying to put down around access and access across the board. So even just in terms of learning information and psychoeducation about mental health and the intersectionality with psychedelics and plant and mushroom medicine and different ways of learning more about ourselves and getting closer to being that, we talked about authenticity so much, being more in tune and aligned with that authentic self. And so I'm just doing the best I can to create as many pathways of access to do that.
Yeah, and I have yet to talk about psychedelics on this podcast at all. So I'm really excited to have you on to begin that conversation. And I would love to know what got you started on this journey. What was your first experience with psychedelics and what made you want to bring that into the work that you do?
Beautiful, multi-part question.
Yeah.
And because of who you are and how you are, I get to be a little woo-woo in how I bring my authenticity to the answers. So personally, to be completely transparent, I began experimenting with psychedelics in high school, and then that took more shape in alignment with how I see, understand, and utilize psychedelic medicine today, more in college, to where I realized, oh, this is opening up space and curiosity to think differently, and offering me more of a reset to have these allies on my side of how I want to show up with myself in the world. So I started to, in college, really be more intentional with my experimentation with psychedelics, in terms of personal growth and insight and that kind of spiritual development. Fast forward through my 20s and moving to New York and pursuing singing, and then all of these different lives that led to going back to school and pursuing mental health, getting my degree in mental health counseling, still here and there having some of those resets, right? Personally with certain psychedelics. It really wasn't until I had graduated, gotten my degree, my master's, and was starting to work in different settings to earn my required hours for my New York license, that I had also, and here's the woo-woo part, I speak with and have readings with various clairvoyant healers. I've done this pretty much almost my entire life, at various points, and completely different readers who do not know each other, by the way. They told me to look into maps. And I'm like, a map of what? What maps? What map? Where am I going? Please, I love to travel. Tell me, where am I going? And what they were, if you're not familiar, or any listeners aren't familiar, in the psychedelic sphere and community, MAPS stands for the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies.
Interesting.
And while I had my own experience with psychedelics, I didn't know at that time what MAPS meant. So they multiple people told me to look into MAPS. And as you know, on this path, when you're in alignment and one thing clicks, it's like a domino effect, and everything starts to just fall in line. And I did my research on, because now, as we know, psychedelics coming into more of the forefront with research and into the mainstream, right? And especially now, more and more trainings coming online too, literally online. And but at that time, this was not too long ago, because I just finally graduated about a year ago, almost now, from the program that I found in that domino effect with IPI, the Integrative Psychiatry Institute in Colorado. And I pursued this certification program to become a psychedelic assisted therapy provider, learned about ketamine, MDMA, psilocybin. And from there, everything just has been exploding. I opened my own practice, moved to California, where I'm originally from, had my own experience in the Amazon with ayahuasca, and went to the MAPS hosted psychedelic science conference, biggest one ever in history in the world, like something like 12,000 plus registrants. It's just, it's all been buzzing and opening up. So back to your question, it's really been a culmination of my own personal experience, recognizing the path of enlightenment, the sacredness of these allies contributing to my own personal growth and self-discovery, and then being receptive and open to the ways in which that is so in line with my calling in the work of providing support with mental health.
Wow, it's so powerful, and it's so true. For so many people, we can't separate the personal experience and journey that we've had from our professional and why we're doing what we're doing. And when it comes to psychedelics, I do think that so many more people are learning about it and learning about the amazing positive influence it can have on mental health. And I think a lot of people still don't, there's still a lot of mystery and fear and misunderstanding around it all. So I'm curious, what is something you wish people knew about psychedelics, especially when it comes to using it in a therapeutic way?
Absolutely. I think that's so important, especially in this wave of renaissance that we're in, to what you're saying, like highlight, well, wait a minute, there's still this shadow of stigma from implanted from the 80s, when all of the rhetoric around what was shoved down our throats to be fearful, right? So, so this is actually why I started to provide free Q&A spaces about psychedelics and mental health. I've provided them online. I'm actually hosting my next in-person Q&A at Ground Floor Club SF in San Francisco, for anyone who is in the area, or please, reach out to me directly, March 15th, because having an open forum to be able to ask these kinds of questions, or maybe they don't even know what to ask. So thank you for asking. Firstly, I think it's really helpful to be clear about right now where we're at. So right now, in the US at least, the only federally approved psychedelic medicine is ketamine. And ketamine technically is a dissociative anesthetic. It is completely safe in terms of ketamine-assisted psychotherapeutic use. So part of that is because it's gone through all of these rigorous clinical trials and been approved for this kind of usage. It's also at a dosage level that is way, 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 way less than what people associate. Like anesthesia is how it's used more commonly in hospitals for pain management and undergoing surgery, right? That anesthetic dose is so much higher than what we use for ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. I also get this question of, isn't ketamine a horse tranquilizer? And I laugh because I'm half joking there, because partly it's people seriously think that. And why not? If it's continued in that rhetoric, if it's what people are hearing, then it makes sense to be confused. So let me be clear. No, it is not. It is not what we're consuming, and the dosage is so different. The effect, though, is powerful when coupled with psychotherapy. We use this three-prong approach, highlighting preparation. So preparing for this, it includes intention setting, set and setting, right? Your mindset and your setting in terms of your environment, what you want going into your ketamine experience or any non-ordinary state of consciousness. Preparation is so key. As much as we want to identify what we want going into it in terms of your intention, exploring what happens if you don't get that? What happens if you don't experience what you wanted? How do we continue? How do we explore that as much as possible so that you can go into your dosing session or journey fully trusting yourself, fully trusting the medicine, and fully trusting the person with whom you are embarking on this journey and is holding that space for you, right? And then the third piece is integration. Integration, I can't stress enough how magical and important integration is, because this is where we really pull these threads through all these gems and insights and pearls of wisdom that were downloaded in so many different various experiences, journeys, each journey looks different, even with the same person with the same dose. Integration is how we start to implement them into our day-to-day. So I give that container for people to take, like, just as a framework. And then I actually created a journey journal as like a tangible access, right? Container if they can't work with me or somebody else individually, or even in a group setting, which I just launched. CAP Together is a intimate group ketamine experience that includes all three of those parts: preparation, dosing, and integration. But even in the journal, having a little bit more intentional container for your experience. So that's also one thing that I would hope people take with them, is giving a little bit more of a framework for whatever medicine you're using, right? Coming from a harm and risk reduction approach. If you're already using that, then at least take this information and psychoeducation to do what you're going to do in a safe and effective way.
Yes, setting, intention, and integration. I actually think those are crucial ingredients to many experiences, but particularly when it comes to psychedelics. And I'm curious, though, how you feel about people who are using psychedelics without support and without this awareness and intention, because especially coming from a spiritual place, there are a lot of people who use it very regularly, or people go to parties and use these medicines. And I'm just curious your thoughts about that.
This is a huge topic. There's a panel on this topic that is I'm certainly not the one to announce, but I will just plug the Discovery Sessions Psychedelic Conference in San Francisco. We will be talking about this because there's also so many people in a position holding space in this way. I'm a psychedelic therapist. I have licenses that I have to, and boards that I got to make sure to stay in line and protect liability, right? I'm coming from a therapeutic model through my training and education, right? Informed by my own experiences, right? Personally with psychedelics, as well as leaning on the wisdom from indigenous cultures and people and land and medicine, that they've been doing this way longer than us, way longer than we decided to now, make it more legitimate with our research, right? So then you have certain people in those spheres, guides, shamans. I know them as like maestro healers, or then you got coaches or spiritual leaders who hold this kind of space. So this is a huge topic, and we can look at it from a place of contention, right? Like, no, this is my space, right? Or we can look at it from a perspective through the lens of curiosity, which I am challenged over and over to lean more into, because I do believe that there's space for everybody and everybody's experience. So arguably, even those who go to a rave, for example, is a really popular, common space and setting that where people experiment and enjoy and play with psychedelics. Now, through the lens of curiosity, I would argue, how is that not therapeutic? How is that not also a parallel to how these medicines were and are used in other cultures around the world originally, indigenously, right? Like, it's got music. That's one component that's always involved. It's got movement, which also, depending on the medicine, but particularly when we look at like indigenous cultures and traditions and practices and rituals that include dance, right? It's got movement of some kind, and it's got community, right? You are surrounded and immersed and enveloped by other people collectively experiencing this intangible, ineffable, mystical experience. And so all of those things, maybe it's at a rave and a party or in a recreationally kind of viewed setting, I would argue that it's just a different version than maybe what we know. And it's also still checking off the same things that are going on in some of these other therapeutic or traditional spheres. So I did want to give some of that perspective to your question around like who holds space. That was part of it too, right? Like who's holding that space with them. I do think this is really important. I do think that being safe and being aware, right? And part of that goes into intention. What is your intention going into it? Something that was told to me during one of my psychedelic journeys, experiences, not in the journey, but in preparation, was you may not get what you want, but you'll always get what you need, and not more than you can handle. So I think embodying that with your intention, your experience may look different. Maybe you don't want to be in a therapy office or over Zoom or at a party or in the Amazon, right? Like, what do you want? What are you wanting going into this? And I think that curiosity again can then inform what are the things or people or information that you need in order to create what that looks like. I think starting from your intention to allow that to inform, if it includes a guide, you know, it sometimes that's not necessary, actually. Right? So I think it really depends on what it is you're wanting out of the experience.
Yeah. And I will say I've had my own experience, mainly just with mushrooms, and they've all been really positive experiences, but I've always gone into it very grounded and intentional. And I think that what I've observed is the problem can come in for others when they are not doing it for themselves. I guess when peer pressure comes in, or that lack of groundedness already within themselves, like they're not prepared, they're not setting the intention. And I think a lot of it comes back to being true to yourself. Like, does this truly feel right for you in this moment? Is this truly what you want to do? Do you feel prepared? And holding true to that. And I think if you're covering setting, intention, integration, you can't go wrong, really. But if you're missing a piece of that, it can impact you in a way that you might need to work through afterwards.
You might be working through it in it too. If some of what you're bringing up, I think, is really important. When you mentioned peer pressure and maybe ambiguity around your intention in a way that can start to kind of creep into your experience, into your journey, right? The fear of having a bad trip, right? So much of what we surround ourselves with and what we consume, and think consumption in terms of everything, right? What you eat, what you hear, what you view, what you speak, right? Like all of that kind of interaction in all the ways leading up to your experience, your journey, they're so important. All of those things are going to, in some way, shape, form, or degree, be embedded into your experience.
Yes.
And come out in various ways in your journey. So if you're going in with fear, right, how might that then show up? Still helpful and useful in integration afterward to tie to this and that, and how, still valuable lessons for us. And yet, were there ways that you could possibly expose yourself to that maybe was less intense or less fear-based, right? So even recognizing, like, why am I doing this? Asking myself, why do I want to do this? I think, yeah, to your point right there, can help mitigate some of that fear, and also build more trust in allowing ourselves to submit and surrender to the experience.
Like you said before, you won't always get what you want, but you'll get what you need. And so you don't always know how you're going to feel as you're going through the experience, but knowing that you're having the experience that you need to have and that you can get through it, even if it brings up the fear, brings up the discomfort, brings up realizations that you have been trying to ignore. If you are grounded in yourself enough that you can handle that, it can be really transformative. One thing I have noticed when it comes to psychedelics is that people can get a little addicted to it and turn to it often to kind of disconnect themselves from a more grounded reality. I don't know if you've had this experience, or if you notice this. I don't know, I've just been in certain communities where this has seemed to be a theme, and I'm curious your thoughts or experiences with that.
I think that's a great question to highlight the non-addictive aspects of many of these psychedelics. Actually, there's a chart that I'm happy to share with you afterward that has all of the various substances. So everything from nicotine to alcohol to ketamine and MDMA and psilocybin and LSD, right? And mushrooms was yours. It was the one that you shared, was almost all the way to the end of the spectrum, that of the lowest addictive substance. And even ketamine, the one that we are able to legally play with and utilize in a therapeutic space, is not shown to be an addictive substance. What came up as you were saying this, in terms of people wanting to go back for more, right, ends up being, what I found, more about like seeking an answer, seeking. Yes. And back to the woo-woo side of getting a reading or there's so many different things that humans might turn to for relief, right? For what's underneath, what is informing the need to go back. It's a need for some kind of answer or a discomfort with some kind of feeling that's coming up. And that is typically an unresolved issue that Jung says, name it to tame it. Like, if we're not naming it, if we're not bringing it into the meta, bringing it into our reality, it's going to keep coming. He also said, what we resist persists. So yeah, if we're not grounded in the reality of that discomfort, for example, we're not going to be able to show up with it, and we're going to seek things that take us away from it. There was one other thing that you mentioned too, though, like seeking out these substances to then disconnect, I think is an interesting perspective, because one of the qualities of these non-ordinary states of consciousness is actually a sense of unity and interconnectedness, right? So if we flip it, it might actually be that they're wanting to feel connected.
Oh, absolutely. Well, two things. One, you hit on what I was trying to say. I wasn't necessarily trying to say that the substances in of themselves are addictive. I'm glad that you made that super clear, because yeah, they're really not. I meant more so they're addicted to this seeking and this. I think it's a good point to bring up that is not only, they're not only people don't only pursue that through psychedelics, but also through any sort of, it could be anything, in the spiritual realm. And then on the disconnection versus connection piece, I think in a way it can bring us more connected. I think a lot of people are seeking connection when they take psychedelics or when they become quote unquote addicted in that sense. But I've just seen it unfold in a way that they're seeking connection, and it can bring deeper connection in a lot of ways to themselves, to the world, to maybe the people they're taking it with, but not as much so with others and with all of reality as a whole, not as grounded, more airy.
Everyone's relationship with this state, right, with this experience is different. And even one person's journey, from journey to journey, even the same medicine is different. So some of it might also just be like wanting to see what else, wanting to see, it's like almost like you get to look behind the curtain and you want to take another look. You want to see more of the full picture, the fuller picture, right? But I'm curious about your as I understand you trying to articulate this groundlessness.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so much part of human experience too.
Yeah. It's for sure. And I can't speak to it too much because it hasn't been my experience. It's just been what I've noticed in other communities and people I've been around. My experience has been really positive, and it has helped me have a deeper connection to myself and the world and others, and also to observe what's going on in my mind from a different perspective. And it has helped me in a therapeutic sense. And on that topic specifically, I'm curious the specific ways you've noticed it helped people and with their mental health and helped improve their mental health.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love what you just said about like the perspective shift, right? Because neurologically what's happening is these medicines are creating what's called neuroplasticity. So think plastic, right? Like malleable, flexible. It's literally bringing a flexibility to our mindset of how we think about things, of how we approach certain patterns of thought with perhaps rigidity. Psychedelics helps to bring more malleability and flexibility to change that perspective, which is really, really important when we start to then dive into integration of actually implementing it into these changes into our life. There's something called a neuroplastic window, this window of neuroplasticity after, not even just in the journey, but up to like a week after, at least with ketamine, your journey, your experience, your brain is still in that window of neuroplasticity, which is why meeting with your psychotherapist again and starting to really like reflect and journal and do whatever things for you, exercises and practices that can help really start to plant the seeds that were dusted off in that process, to really start to plant them into the the bedrock of your daily life, right? So I've seen clients have so many more aha moments, right? These like little awakenings or little like resets, like I mentioned earlier for myself, that not only happen, they don't just occur in the journey itself, it might be within your own mind, but you can't quite articulate it or identify it until you're out of that state of consciousness. And then even again, up to a week afterward, where we're starting to pull those threads even further and weave them into your day-to-day, so that the new way of thinking starts to be your regular way of thinking. So like, I also explain this in terms of like redefining habits and redefining our relationship to habits, because literally, neurologically, it's not just willpower that's going to change a habit. It's not fair to view it that way. And it's also inaccurate. It's not even correct, because our brain is wired in a way that these neural pathways, they're like these hiking trails that we walk on, right? The more we walk on them, the clearer the path, the more you think that thought, the more you think that thought. So of course, it's going to be ingrained, and it's going to take more than just willpower to flip to a new hiking trail, right? So so these psychedelic medicines, another analogy that I love is like a ski slope. And those grooves from the skis are like these neural pathways, right? And ketamine, for example, is like a new snowfall that fills up those grooves. So then you have this beautiful, nice, clean slate to ski down and create new thoughts and new behaviors and new patterns that are more congruent with the person that you want to be, that you truly are.
I love that. And I've been having the experience a lot recently where I hear myself say old stories that I used to repeat to myself over and over and be like, these just don't feel true anymore. And on the one hand, some of them are still kind of running in the background in my subconscious. And I'm still like, you still have to work to rewire those neural pathways. And then others are like, it's just time to shed them and let them go. And I think that what you're saying is that these types of psychedelic medicines can help us let those stories go and create new ones.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's I mean, this is a deeper conversation too around the ways that we develop these coping styles of thinking about ourselves and about the world, that I think it's important to recognize the wisdom in those ways too, because even though they're not working for you anymore, we developed them originally to take care of ourselves, to protect ourselves, actually. So in perhaps a dramatic sense, this annoying way of being actually was set up for survival. And so I think first honoring that so that we can develop more of a relationship with these other parts of us that really are doing the best they can. Their intention is to protect you. It's self-preservation, right? And also then recognize, okay, that's not the only way for me to be able to protect myself, for me to be able to maneuver in the world. And we don't have to white knuckle it anymore. And we can embrace some softness, which psychedelics can also aid in that ease to then move in different ways.
Absolutely. Is there a thought pattern or belief that you used to hold on to tightly or used to kind of run the show for you that you've been able to let go of and work through your use of psychedelics, or just in your life in general?
Oh, cutting right to it. Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that I probably will forever be working on, actually, but is one that I've certainly done a lot of work on in my own therapy, and psychedelics have absolutely made huge changes in my life in terms of my relationship with my self-worth, and just the ways in which I value myself, and I can know it here, I can know it up here. Intellectually, I can know it, and I've learned to know it better as I've developed, but that's not really where the root of the issues are in our tissues. Okay. So like we can know it up here, but embodying that knowing of self-worth, that it's not the barometer of my self-worth is not by how many letters are at the end of my name, or you know, the number of my dress size, or the size of my apartment, you know, or various other more nuanced ways that come up in relationships, right? That's why relationships are so valuable and sometimes triggering, because they show us all these parts and shadows of ourselves and opportunities to, oh, wow, I still got to work on that. You know, so that's definitely my relationship with myself in terms of my value, and just as me, not what I do or what I provide, has been and will likely be a lifelong lesson.
Yeah, I believe that's a big one for a lot of people. And it comes back to what you were saying a little while ago about how we can have these conscious thoughts, but they're not always how we act. They're not always what we embody. And we have to work on rewiring those beliefs. And a lot of us have that experience. I want to switch to intuition and living in alignment with your intuition. What does your connection to your intuition look like, and how have you developed that and strengthened that over time?
So even just recognizing language here, I think is an interesting and like opening for people to connect with intuition, your gut. I call it in the world of psychedelic assisted therapy, your inner healing intelligence. So recognizing that we all have, and we're born with, this innate knowing, and we forget it, right? We through different various experiences and traumas, we disconnect from that knowing. And so through therapy, through my own therapy, and also especially in conjunction with psychedelic therapy, I've seen that bridge further connect and strengthen in recognizing that, okay, wait, I know the answer. I always had the answer. And I see that with my clients too, right? I see, and girlfriends or other guy friends who, you know, we question ourselves. And that, I think, speaks back to our conversation around the seeking, the constant external seeking of validation, of really ultimately validating what we already know, but we forget, or we doubt, that self-doubt, right? So I think in my experience, both personally and professionally, being able to have this secure space with a professional to help bring me back to me. I mean, that's all the medicines are here to do anyway. I always say it's not the medicine doing the work, it's you. They're our allies, just like, you know, the people in our lives can be allies for, you know, holding our hand and letting us access whatever parts we need to reconnect with ourselves, to that intuition.
I agree. And that's something I say a lot, is that we are born with this innate knowing, and then all the external noise and trauma and whatever else kind of disconnects us from that and draws us away from ourselves. And it's about finding the tools and the support that works for us to help us turn back inwards and back into ourselves. And a lot of the time it does require finding external support, but that person's always guiding us back inwards. And it's so important.
I think that's a really crucial distinction too, right? Like my job as a therapist is not to tell you what to do. So like, if you're seeking a therapist to tell you what to do, like, and they're doing that, that's not how it goes, right? Like, I'm just the flashlight. I see certain things that may help you figure it out for yourself. Because also, it's not going to do much if I tell you. Think about like anybody else in your life. You make the changes when you're ready, right? You grow into that realized person when you figure it out yourself. So I completely agree. I think whatever tools and resources, again, as you said, work for you. That's a key piece too, are going to help you return to you.
Yes. And this is something that's been coming up a lot with my clients and in my life, is we make the changes when we're ready. You know, we can have all the support, we can have everyone trying to guide us and tell us, but until we are ready, until we have that acknowledgement within ourselves of, I'm ready to make this shift, I'm ready to embody this, or at least start to tiptoe into a new way of being, it won't happen, because no one can do it for you. People can hold your hand and hold you up and all the things, but no one can actually heal and grow and change for you. It always has to come from you, and it won't come until you're ready.
And I think that can be both inspiring and exciting, and it can also feel really daunting, like this big responsibility, right? So as much as that empowered statement is true, I think also bringing it down a little bit to not make it feel like this big scary thing, like that can look like incremental change, baby steps.
It's not about one day just waking up and changing your whole life. It's about writing one word in a journal. It's about telling someone you need support. It's the little moments each day, and it looks different for everyone. And it's just about, a lot of it is trusting yourself and being honest with yourself about where you're at and where you want to go and what you need.
That's a big one. That's a beautiful place to start.
Okay, so living intuitively wild means living dedicated to your true, authentic self, no matter what. How do you feel like you live intuitively wild?
I think doing stuff like this, being on your podcast, right? Like leaning into my edges of what feels both scary and exciting. And when it feels a little scary, I know it's actually probably the intuitively wild way to go. And that helps me shine in my unique ways.
Yeah, I love that. And I wish we had more time to talk about your human design, because it's so powerful, but using your voice and embracing your ebbs and flows and your rhythms, your emotions, and the magic that comes through your voice when you are ready to share is so important and such a big part of your purpose. So it's beautiful to see you start to embrace that more and more.
I feel that. Thank you so much, Rachel. Yeah, I'm a manifester, as I've been assigned. This is my human design as a manifester. So I'm learning more and more how some of my shadows and edges are using my voice. And it's also sort of the key too. So I appreciate you seeing me in that.
Yeah, well, I relate to different aspects of that. So please tell everyone where they can find you, work with you, connect with you, all the things you have going on.
Yes. So again, my name is Gwen Pelfini. That is my website, gwenpelfini.com. It is my IG handle, Gwen Pelfini. I have various points of access to work together to give you information, resources, psychoeducation. I'm actually working on a new journey journal that's going to be more of like an adult coloring book, art therapy informed design in collaboration with this beautiful artist, Laura Marshall, that will be ready for pre-order by March 7th, which is also the panel discussion that I'll be moderating on sex and psychedelics at the Midway. San Francisco, as a salon series with discovery sessions, they are holding the San Francisco Annual Psychedelic Conference in April, where I'll also be speaking. So come if you're not in the Bay Area in California, plan for that, because it's a big deal. There's going to be so many amazing, beautiful, powerful speakers. Much of the seeds that we planted here today on different aspects of psychedelics will be discussed thoroughly there. There'll be lots of fun vendors, and it's a really cool time. So April 18th and 19th, tickets are being sold for the Discovery Sessions Psychedelic Conference in April. I also have a couple in-person events at Ground Floor Club San Francisco, as well as Ground Floor Club Marin, and that is March 15th and March 28th. And there's a Ground Floor Club opening in LA. So tune in for summer dates to attend those. But I also really enjoy one-on-one and group work with people. So as I mentioned, I just launched HAP Together, which is an intimate group ketamine-assisted psychotherapy experience, and it's got a rolling opening. So if that's something you're curious about, talk about dipping your toes in, doing it with a group can be more feasible, more accessible, and also offers such enhanced insights, because you're also learning from the people around you. So that's something that I'm really excited to be leaning more into and opening up now. So reach out. I'd love to hear from you and connect.
Yeah, so many amazing offerings. I mean, as everyone knows, I love journaling and I'm so passionate about it. And I love community. And I think that so much healing can be unlocked with community that can't be unlocked by ourselves. And having the support of someone who is so knowledgeable and wise and practiced and experienced in what they're sharing is really important. So just really excited to share your message with the world. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Intuitively Wild, the podcast. I hope it helped deepen your connection to yourself, sparked some insights, and inspired you to live intuitively wild. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would share it with others and leave a rating and review. And please reach out to me. I would love to connect with you. I will see you next time for more